Professor, every time I ask someone how to get better at expressing myself or how to get better at communication, everyone has a different answer.
Well, it is natural because everyone has their own way of doing and saying things, which may or may not work for another person.
Then what do you suggest one must do to communicate better?
You know the saying, practice makes perfect. From leaders to graduates with no formal work experience, you need to be an efficient communicator to create a seat on the table for yourself, hold it, and probably create more seats and tables. That is what communication does. It expands people's knowledge and ideas, which in turn helps them communicate better. You should not only prepare for interviews, applications, and presentations, but also for calls, meetings, networking requests, and every form of communication you wish to excel at, and use them in an efficient manner to grow professionally. Why should we prepare to talk? Well, for starters, when you attempt to communicate without being well prepared, you may stammer, which might display a lack of confidence, or you might not be able to present a convincing proposal. Your work may come across as inauthentic with irrelevant information, and you might unintentionally leave your audience with lots of questions on their mind. The list goes on, and these can all be largely avoided if you prepare well.
So this is just like when, as a student, you are communicating at every step of your recruitment and application process, from networking with industry officials, to writing a CV, to eventually accepting a job offer. The way you communicate in each of these steps can have a large impact on whether or not your efforts stood out, were they received positively and added value to your candidacy or not.
Of course, but preparing for a job interview takes more than just writing out your CV. You have to know your CV inside out. If you have included details of a job or a project that is a few years old, you should be prepared to talk about it, so do not take your previous experiences lightly. You only need to have the most relevant experiences on your CV, along with the details and the lessons learned during the said experiences. The interviewer will pick your CV, and you should be able to justify the relevance of your experiences and history to the work you will be doing ahead, and what the employer is looking for. It shows how prepared you are, and how well you can communicate what you have to bring to the table, which might get you an offer. You prepare a story, and have explanations ready for justifying your decision to work in the field, and at the specific role you are applying to.
This is very insightful, Professor, and I imagine it will be very useful to our listeners. Let's try to dig deeper into this. Having talking points for interviews is always helpful, but what else sets a candidate apart from the others?
As you said, having talking points and knowing your story inside out helps. Visualize how you would like the interviewer to respond to you, and analyze the best way to receive that response, how to present your stories and your journey, which parts to highlight and which to ignore to stay within time constraints. For instance, when you talk about your experience in sports teams, college societies, clubs, and volunteer experience, etc., talk about applying skills from those activities to your role. Like teamwork in sports may be applicable for a team-based job such as consulting. For example, if you are an engineering graduate and are attempting to bag an internship with a consulting firm, you should highlight the skills you have learned as an engineer. Your skill set includes a high level of comfort with numbers, analytical mindset, coding, programming expertise, teamwork, and competitive drive. The skill set of a good candidate with a finance or business background in consulting includes a highly analytical nature, solutions-driven nature, great communication skills, and high flexibility. Talk about the role with the passion of a student with an academic background directly relevant to the job, but the skills and transferable acumen of your degree to give you an edge, which perhaps could be your analytical skills, programming knowledge, and ability to analyze and understand numbers, as opposed to the students you are competing with, who might have a lot more industry-specific acumen. So, the passion of a business student, and the skills of an engineering student, which creates a distinct candidacy, that will give them an edge.
So, our aim as a candidate should be to create a niche for ourselves?
Precisely. You do this by thinking and working on your application, your story, your approach, and your content, way before you actually face the application process. You do not talk about your degree in chemical engineering as if you were applying for a role as an engineer at an engineering firm, competing with other engineers. Because then it just looks common. Instead, think of what you have, and can present to separate you from a herd of equally relevant engineers. So, in essence, prepare like you are underqualified as compared to your competition. Present yourself as a suitable candidate owing to your background, that you can offer as much, and a lot of different skills and experiences than your contenders. This is how you have to communicate transferable skills and knowledge, and create a niche for yourself.
So, suppose there is a student who has applied to a role and wants to prove themselves through their story. In the interview, they may do this by either gaining all relevant skills or creating a niche for themselves using communication to best present their experiences.
Certainly. Try practicing with someone, identify the gap between what is on your CV to what comes to your mind when you start speaking. Then ask for reviews. Get inputs on how someone listening to you feels about what you are trying to express. Ask for feedback and work on it. Record yourself giving a mock interview with a family member or mentor. Analyze and gauge your faults, and bridge the gap between how you actually sound and how you want to sound.
Although interviews are not the only places where we need to use communication skills wisely, am I right? You could already have a job and then realize that something is off with your communication skills.
Yes. You could find yourself feeling underconfident when you approach people in social or professional settings, or when you are trying to network for a better understanding of the industry, or whatever it is that you are doing it for. While networking, remember that time is of the essence. You have the opportunity to learn from someone busy and important. Ensure your words are right on point, be it while asking, answering, or even scheduling a call. What can be conveyed in one line should not be 3 pauses and 5 sentences long. This will only reduce the time you have to learn from someone, and increase your chances of not impressing them. It can be tricky to understand the difference between formal and informal conversation, especially when you are in a new social setting and may need practice. Treat the industry professionals you network with as mentors, and respect their experience, and them taking the efforts and time to assist you. You may cold email professionals to set up a call with them, or ask them for their insights on a particular issue. The purpose of networking is to gain knowledge about the industry, get mentored, and get advice. You need to prepare accordingly. Know what questions you want to ask, why you want to enter the industry, and what experiences you want your mentors to elaborate upon. The key point is practicing and thinking about what to say, and how to say it, which can be really helpful. Similarly, at the workplace, understand your responsibility to the task and your team. You should be well versed with the plan of action before you communicate it, to ensure effective communication and maximum penetration. Try to predict the questions your team or the audience might have, and incorporate the answers in your speech or presentation. This will help simplify your content and make it more understandable by reducing the doubts in the audience's mind. While preparing for your presentation, assume both the best and the worst. The latter, where your team needs absolute guidance and clarity from you, for which you will yourself have to be completely confident in your topics, as well as the former, where your team is capable of undertaking the task, and then showcasing that belief and confidence in their capabilities through your presentation.
So, anticipating problems and thinking about solutions beforehand can also be useful, but there are many situations where you cannot practice what to say. Some situations might simply put you in an unforeseen position.
That is true. Talking to people so that they listen means you adjust your message on the fly to continue to connect with your audience about what they are ready to hear and how they are ready to hear it. This is called reflection. Reflection is the art of listening, thinking, and responding accordingly, as opposed to responding because you have something planned, or because you want to assert dominance in a conversation. Listening is just as important to good communication as speaking. Make sure you take in what other people say to you, and respond to it thoughtfully. Reflection and reciprocation are the bridge to effective listening and communication. Most people think that having solid communication skills means being a great speaker, but it is also about learning to listen, watching body language, and interpreting the gaps in a conversation or exchange. An exchange cannot take place with only one party giving, and never receiving. Be comfortable being on both sides of the exchange. So, The term reflection, in the context of communication, can be understood well by taking it literally, to reflect like a mirror. How can you do that? How can you let people feel a sense of connection, through similarities, and seeing what they themselves communicate reflected in your communication? You must really listen first, and then you must weave the aspects you have picked up from them into your response or case. When you are on the spot, it is easy to start a sentence without any clear idea of where it is going to end, because you do not want to seem uncertain or unprepared. But the key to not seeming uncertain or unprepared is in fact to be certain and prepared. The interviewers will most likely not think any less of you if you pause, take a breath, and come up with a considered response to a tough question. They will, on the other hand, be unimpressed if you give an unrelated answer to an important question. Whenever possible, refer back to something that had come up earlier in the interview or application process to demonstrate that you are fully engaged with it. So to answer your question about what to do when unforeseen situations come up, think about which parts of your interview did your interviewer respond positively to. Were you able to gauge their interest rising in a specific part of the interview? If you are attentive, you can learn to gauge the social cues your recruiter is projecting. When does their voice pitch up in excitement? Are you conversing, or are they seeming bored and uninterested? Have they been smiling? If they are seeming disinterested or distant, ask them a question, and maintain a positive outlook and energy throughout. Do not lose your flow and continue smiling as you answer, or interact with them.
This might be a little tough for inexperienced people though.
Start observing seniors and professionals you interact with, and notice what they respond like in certain situations that you would be unsure of if you had not experienced earlier. For example, their response when they are asked a question about their career. Listen to expert seminars and podcasts or any relevant material by industry experts on their experiences in the corporate world and their expectations from employees. Observe their body language. Are they looking at you right in the eye, nodding their head? This indicates interest and engagement. Are they looking around, arms folded? Oftentimes this suggests they are not open to what you are suggesting, and may disagree. Reflection is aided by a level of sensitivity to gauging social cues. Hence for this, you need to be emotionally attentive, be calm, and try to do your best. Interact with the recruiter as you would with your manager, or someone you work with. Take their feedback well, and work on it. You can practice this skill by participating in more public-facing roles at college. Join committees for fests, take up tutoring, take part in team competitions. Basically expose yourself to areas that require you to communicate, and where you can seek reviews for your performance. Remember these three before you answer any question: the job, the question, and the answer. If you feel stuck in an interview, or are confused, or your stage fright kicks in, try asking yourself these questions to regain your flow, and begin to answer. This is about you, your reflection and reciprocation on the interviewer's comments, and cues will also lead to an answer about you, so do not get hassled.
Essentially, the thinking must be in a manner which helps in understanding the thought behind these questions. What could be the reason behind the question? What do I need to prove for this specific role? How can I convince the employer that I am right for this role through this answer? Can my answer be better suited to highlight my candidacy?
Yes. Reflection is not just for your immediate reactions during an interview, it is also extremely important to reflect on what passed in the interview after you are done. Think about what you wish you had said, why you did not say it, and how you can improve yourself for the next time you are in such a situation. Learning is a continuous process, hence reflecting on your growth should also be continual. You should work on yourself, and be optimistic in that you are improving with every flaw you notice in your past performance. Again, the same goes for business leaders and employees. Always attempt to positively reflect on the comments and questions contributed by your team. Be ready to change your flow to suit their needs, because as a leader you are responsible for the collective efforts and results of your team. Ask them questions, and attempt to clarify any and all questions. To reflect on a question means, do you think about why your team might have doubts that you were not clear enough in your explanation? Should you change your methods? Do you need to talk to them more to understand where they are coming from? Target specific employees for tasks they excel at and make personal connections. For example, Raj is known to be a creative individual, so perhaps ask him if he has any design inputs. Tina is an engineering graduate, if she has any insights on the kind of technology you are looking into. Be receptive to your team's opinion. You work together, and their inputs should be welcome and encouraged. This helps improve their openness to you, and overall improving their motivation to work. After a presentation, or a long meeting, reflect on all the reviews you received. Think about the aspects of your presentation, or speech your team responded positively to, and try to incorporate the feedback you received, or self-assured, into your future exchanges.
Professor, you have talked about listening in relation to reflection, and also briefly talked about confidence as well, but these elements by themselves make up important soft skills. Maybe we could talk about them in the next section.
Of course, we can go deeper into these important soft skills in the next section.
Please answer the following questions based on section 2, before we move on to the next section.